Check out these performances from the multi-track master of the Beatles, Here Comes the Sun. Ringo Starr driving the song on drums. Paul McCartney on his Rickenbacker bass. And the songwriter George Harrison playing guitars. An early Moog 3 Series synthesizer. And singing harmonies with Paul.
Here comes the sun, I say it's alright.
So cool, right? I mean, getting to hear these individual performances is kind of like a masterclass in songwriting, performing, arranging, and producing. Stay with me to go inside George Harrison's masterpiece, Here Comes the Sun, because together we are gonna blow up the song. Welcome back to the channel and the premiere episode of Blow Up the Song. First, I just want to thank you for watching, subscribing, commenting, and sharing my videos. I started this channel a couple years ago just to pass along the best of what I've learned in 5 decades as a songwriter, performer, and producer. So Blow Up the Song is something I've been wanting to do for a long time. We're going to take some of the greatest songs and recordings and explode the veneer of each song's final mix. We're going to listen to individual tracks so you can hear the inner workings, how the music got arranged, performed, and recorded. I'm excited for you to experience the kind of musical synergy that happens in the studio when you layer parts and tracks. You'll hear how creative the individual parts are, but you'll also hear how human they are, how even the best musicians make mistakes, and ultimately how a great record is a magical sum greater than its parts. I couldn't think of a better song for episode 1 than Here Comes the Sun. Written by George Harrison, recorded over the course of 7 sessions at EMI Studios in July and August of 1969, and released on the last LP the Beatles ever recorded, Abbey Road. Now, something you may not know is that John Lennon doesn't even play or sing on Here Comes the Sun. He was actually recovering from a car accident. So it's just George, Paul, and Ringo. It's no secret that George's songs were always overshadowed by Lennon and McCartney's. George was younger than John and Paul, so they always treated him like a little brother. And that extended to how they saw him as a musician and songwriter. Kind of like, yeah, he's part of the family, but he's not really our equal. So George had always been limited to 1 or 2 songs on each full Beatles LP, and that frustrated him. But it also gave him an interesting advantage coming into the Abbey Road sessions with George Martin producing. John and Paul mostly had song fragments, but George had a backlog of complete songs ready to record. And maybe it's poetic justice that Harrison's contributions to Abbey Road, Something and Here Comes the Sun, became two of the best known and most popular of all the Beatles songs. And don't forget, George's first solo album after the Beatles broke up was a triple LP, All Things Must Pass, and it was loaded with all those great songs he never had a chance to record with the group. All right, let's blow up Here Comes the Sun. So the first thing I have to say is that this is a guitarist song. It could only have been written on guitar. And in fact, George wrote the song on an acoustic guitar in Eric Clapton's garden. Story goes that he'd taken a day away from the business and legal BS he was dealing with at the Beatles record company, Apple, and he was just feeling relief, The optimism just came pouring out of him and into this unforgettable song. So Here Comes the Sun is built on a foundation of 3 brilliant guitar riffs. And if you want to learn it on guitar, it kind of helps to realize there are really only 3 sections you need to learn. So there's the verse riff. There's the chorus riff. And there's the Sun, Sun, Sun bridge riff. Take a look at the song's structure. There are some unusual details and arrangement choices that really help keep the song interesting, even though it repeats the same phrases fairly often. The guitar intro is actually the first verse. It just doesn't have vocals on top. So that means when George first starts singing, he's actually singing the first chorus. And there's really no stronger way to start a song than with a really memorable chorus. Here's George's acoustic guitar. So that's a Gibson SJ200 in standard tuning, and he's got a capo way up at the 7th fret. And that gives it that light, dreamy quality. I mean, to me, it actually sounds like the sun coming out. So he's playing that D chord shape at the 9th fret. That puts us in the key of A. Now, FYI, if you try to play along with the Beatles, you'll discover the whole recording is about a quarter tone above standard pitch. And no one seems to know why, but the master tape was actually running a little fast when they did the final mix. And it's funny because I think it makes the whole thing just sound a little more optimistic. Now, a lot of the guitar notes are broken apart. So it kind of sounds like finger picking, but it's not. It's a flat pick. When you hear the guitars alone, you can hear quite a few small mistakes, like this. But hey, they don't matter at all once everything gets layered together. And I think that's an important discovery for every recording musician. I mean, this is one of the best known songs by the most popular band of all time, and the record's full of little mistakes, stuff that most people would never notice. And actually, that's what makes it feel real and not manufactured. It actually reminds me of the Navajos. You know, they leave deliberate imperfections in anything they create because they believe only spirit is perfect. And they call the imperfections spirit lines or spirit pathways, where spirit enters the art. So, hey, that's one for imperfection. Notice how one phrase is a single guitar and the next phrase is doubled. And the guitars are just a little out of tune with each other. So it kind of sounds like a 12-string, but there's no higher octave, and that's how we know it's two standard 6-string acoustics. But they sound great together even out of tune. Another thing you can occasionally hear on the guitar-only reduction mix is an electric guitar with a really cool tremolo effect. And that's actually playing through a Leslie speaker, which rotates quickly and creates a Doppler effect with the pitch wobbling up and down. So back to the structure and arrangement. We have verse 1 played by George on guitar, and then adding Moog synthesizer, which was brand new at the time. And they start hard panned to the left. I guess that's left for you. And then the Moog slides to the center and the string section takes over. Check it out. Okay, the vocals enter on the first chorus, alternating George alone or doubled, and then with Paul singing harmonies.
Here comes the sun, doo-doo-doo. Here comes the sun, and I say it's alright.
No drums or bass yet, so it's really kind of a masterful moment when Ringo and Paul enter and drive us into verse 2.
It's alright. Little darling, it's been a long, cold, lonely winter.
So by the time of Abbey Road, the Beatles had finally committed to stereo as their primary mix format. And when you arrange and record a song in stereo, it helps to really think in 3 dimensions, from left to right and from front to back. Some instruments and parts should be up front and some should sit behind, and sometimes you might want to actively move them forward or backward and left or right for different parts of the song. There's actually a lot of movement in the Beatles' final mix. Two of the most subtle but important of the background parts are George playing melodic lines on the Moog, plus a 17-piece orchestra arranged and conducted by George Martin, of course. He's got 4 violas, 4 cellos, a double bass, 2 piccolos, 2 flutes, 2 alto flutes, and 2 clarinets. But most of the arrangement is just the strings. I actually love hearing the orchestra with just the guitars. It's actually a beautiful instrumental version of the song. So if we count the guitar intro verse, there are 3 verses and choruses before we get to that bridge, the sun, sun, sun section. There's actually an incredible build to a climax where they're singing sun, 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 here it comes 5 times. 5 times. That's another arrangement choice that kind of grabs the ear, because normally in Western music, we'd expect to hear a phrase 4 times, not 5. So that 5th repeat is unexpected, and it makes the build feel more intense. Now the bridge time signature is interesting too. Each phrase is 1 bar of 5/4 time followed by 2 bars of 4/4, all repeated 5 times. Let's count it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. All right, now let's blow up the climax to hear what's really happening. George and Paul's harmonies are double tracked, so there are 4 voices singing.
Sun, 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 here it comes. Sun, 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 here it comes.
The guitars are moving around in the mix. They're getting panned from left to center to right on the different phrases. Ringo's jamming away. And Paul is driving the bass with strong hits all the way through and a little flourish before the last sun, sun, sun. I'd never noticed that until hearing the solo track. But the secret to the big buildup is actually the Moog. It comes in on the second sun, sun, sun with this deep square wave sounding part in the bass register, and then it adds a second octave above the low part, then moves up another octave, and then moves up another octave for the final sun, sun, sun. Check this out. And then the orchestra with the woodwinds supports the guitar part and leads us back to the last verse. When we get there, it's such a release. Everything feels fresh and new. The ice is slowly melting and the world is clear for the first time in years.
Little darling, I feel that ice is slowly melting. Little darling, it seems like years since it's been clear. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun. I say it's alright.
During that whole last verse and double chorus, George plays some really sweet countermelodies on the Moog along with the strings. And they actually blend in so well that the Moog is almost a subconscious part of why the song feels bright and sunny. All right, after the last two choruses, there's one extra "It's All Right" for good measure.
It's alright.
And all this sun-filled brilliance leads to the perfect coda. George comes back to that 5/4 bridge riff just one time, guitars only, and then lets the final chord ring. Certainly is all right. Now that we've blown it up, go back and listen to the whole song and have fun hearing all the details you probably missed before. I'm going to put a link to the 2019 mix in the description. This is actually a really beautiful mix that George Martin's son Giles did. He went back to the original tracks before the reduction mixes and created a whole new mix. I think it's beautiful because everything now has stereo spread and we don't have things crunched onto single tracks. So very beautiful. Thanks for being here to blow up the song with me. If you'd like to blow up more songs, please leave a comment, like the video, subscribe, and hit the bell so you'll know when the next video comes out. As always, I post all these videos on guitardiscoveries.com, so check that out. Get your fill of guitar, vocal, and recording inspiration. See you next time.